I work under the name Aeropomics. And I'm a creative.
I designed this, painted this, created this, and this. To me, art captures history and gives you a glimpse of the right here, right now.
And art is everywhere.
I get inspiration from people,
Nature, buildings, music, and food.
Speaking of food, I used to live here. The Telok Ayer district and its vicinity were my favorite chomping ground. There's a good mix of coffee shops, bars, cafes, and restaurants.
Hi, there's food that fills...
Hi. I'm sorry. He was so nervous. Hi.
There's food that fills my stomach at every corner, but what can I find that might be fodder for my art?
For my next personal project, I want to create a painting inspired by the food stories of Telok Ayer. These are tales of Telok Ayer's past.
You see tall buildings in the front of the temple.
It used to be a river.
It was a beach in the 1870s, before the reclamation.
Rekindle memories of food forgotten.
This is a very typical Hokkien food, which early in the China even come to Singapore, everybody is eating it. Right now, it's very rare in the market.
And modern cuisine that serves up history on a plate.
All kind of connected, you know, that our food histories, our histories are woven, and you can see this on the streets.
I want to understand the Telok Ayer district in a way I know best. Translating food stories using abstract shapes, vibrant colors, and my wild imagination. I'll transform the map of Telok Ayer into a flavor map of sorts. Ready? Let's dig in! Not too long ago, I get to combine art and food in a project.
So I did this mural for the Coconut Club, and they're known for their nasi lemak. And I used the banana plant as a jumping off point. So I drew a lot of the leaves. I used charcoal to put this image on. I tried to hero this like kampong life. I think figuring out how to combine food and art is just a little bit of an exercise, understanding where the brand comes from, what the food is about, and helping the people experience the food with the art at the same time. I really like this piece, and it's one of my favorite pieces so far.
As an artist, to be given a wall as my canvas is pure magic. It gives me the ability to fill a void, change a space, and tell stories. I'm zoning in on the area that used to be Singapore's waterfront.
Doors are closing.
In search of Telok Ayer's food stories, I'll start with what I know best.
Street art in the form of murals. There's one that has always caught my eye. This 44-meter-long mural on the historic Hokkien temple.
So, since we're searching for food stories, I wonder, what's in their bowls? The other mural at Spottiswoode, you made use of all the pipes and things to hang coffee.
Yip Yu Chong is the artist behind this masterpiece. Located on the walls of one of the oldest temples in Singapore, Yu Chong's mural chronicles the history of Telok Ayer.
I'll tell you the story.
Yes, okay.
So on the far right, following like a Chinese scroll, I painted the scene of how the Hokkiens came to Singapore via junks. Yeah. Actually, it was very sad. They had to bid farewell to families whom sometimes they may not even meet again. Oh, it took 2 weeks, two long, arduous,
crazy.
strenuous weeks
Yeah.
to cross the southern seas to arrive at Singapore. And do you know where they arrive at?
Where?
In the front of that temple.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, now of course you see
Yeah,
tall
yeah.
buildings in the front
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
temple.
It used to
Before
be a
that,
river.
it was a beach. It was the 1870s, before the reclamation. After they arrive, they will come into this temple to pray because they want to give thanks to the goddess of the sea, Matu.
Matu may have blessed their sea journeys, but now on land, the immigrants must depend on their own toil to put food on the table. Many worked as coolies who formed the backbone of Singapore's labor force in the 19th century.
So Yu Chong, I'm searching for food stories, and it seems like these coolies are eating their lunch or dinner. And do you by any chance know what kind of food they used to eat?
I painted them eating rice. I believe rice must be the staple food right, for all races. You can see Indian, Chinese.
Yeah.
The rice gave them energy. I'm sure that they also have some meat, some vegetables,
Yeah.
and soup. They even cook in the cubicles. Anything that they ate in China or India, they will probably bring it over to Singapore and got passed down into what we eat today.
Telok Ayer today is populated by trendy restaurants and hipster cafes. But more than 200 years ago, it was a vastly different scene. Drifting on the waters of Telok Ayer Bay was a generation of immigrants hungry for a fresh start and some food as well. Food is so integral to our culture that some become icons over time. Like the avocado toast, which started gaining popularity in the 2010s.
So that got me thinking, did the Hokkien immigrants have their own food craze?
There are no hashtag foodie adventures or Michelin guides to point me in the right direction. But this unassuming restaurant might be my best bet. To Ching Kia and his son-in-law Alfred run the oldest Hokkien restaurant in Singapore.
Hi, Alfred!
Oh, hi, John. You come at the right time.
Mr. To's father, who was an early Hokkien immigrant, started a small food stall in the 1930s, serving up sustenance and nostalgia for fellow countrymen.
I'm preparing right now is a sweet potato rice pancake. And this is a very typical Hokkien food, which early in the China even come to Singapore, everybody is eating it. And right now it's very rare in the market.
Preparing this dish is a tedious process that requires both patience and skill. To preserve this tradition, Mr. To has found a protege in his son-in-law, Alfred.
Okay, so give a
Okay.
try and how to cut it.
I feel like I'm pretty good at cutting, like chopping things. I just press.
Yes, it's
Okay.
pressing.
Oh, okay, I got it.
You gotta press a bit, then use both hands. It try to be thinner, will be
Okay.
much more nicer.
Okay.
Because
Like
that is
this?
above 3 mm. Yeah, something like that.
How am I doing?
Oh, wow. Do you do cooking at home? Okay.
Little bit
according
only.
to what I see, actually you can do quite well. It's not as bad as what I think.
While I've passed the knife skills, I've decided to leave the cooking to the pros. I wouldn't want to destroy the rice cakes that have been painstakingly prepared 2 days in advance.
这个番薯粉是道道地地的泉州菜，是我爷爷原来在新加坡跟我伯公他们一起做，做了我爸爸他们那一代也是有卖了，但是到我这一代呢， 功夫太多，有一段时间没有做。
为什么中国在乡下会吃番薯粉？
乡下比较穷，那么它的番薯拿来切，它磨渣，那个渣拿去切，那个水就掉下来，就是变粉。番薯粉拿去晒干。
During the early, like on the 50s and 60s, for rice is more expensive than sweet potato. So not every family will have the chance to eat rice every meal. So this is a substitute for rice at that time.
Once a cheap substitute for rice, the sweet potato rice cake is today a rare Hokkien delicacy in Singapore, found only in Mr. To's restaurant.
So how the taste? And the chewing is good, am I right?
It's so good.
有没有吃过？
没有吃过。
没有吃过。
泡泡茶。
Yeah, like the pearl.
pearl.
Yes, correct.
它很有
correct.
嚼
The
劲。
chewing is just like pearl.
那 QQ。
Yes,
可是
correct.
这种传统的美食哈，我没有保留下来哈，下一代不见了。现在没有保留下来，下一代不见了，没有了。试试看。
The trending dish among Hokkiens in the 19th century is not what we would call Instagram worthy today. Back then, food didn't have to look good to gain likes. But it had to be affordable and filling. It's not just peasants who looked for practicality in food. Turns out, ambidextrous scholars from China's Tong'an district also favored food that's functional. Mr. Tiang is a Hokkien immigrant from Tong'an district. Chai Fuyi was a high-ranking military officer in the Ming Dynasty. Being put in charge of both the provinces of Hunan and Hubei in China, Scholar Chai finds himself swamped with documents to vet and hardly any time to eat. So his worried wife decided to fix this unhealthy situation.
So she came up with the idea to wrap food in skin made of dough. And Chai can use his left hand to hold the roll and eat it, while continue using his right hand to vet the documents. Slowly, this way of eating food become popular in families in southern part of Hokkien, Fujian.
To commemorate Scholar Chai and his wife, Tong'an folks like Mrs. Shen adopted the practice of eating this wrap during festivals.
It's baobing time.
你喜欢吃什么就放什么。
Okay.
Unlike the popiah we are familiar with, the Tong'an version replaces bamboo shoots with glutinous rice and mushrooms. These days, modern Tong'an folks are upgrading the taste by adding a wider variety of ingredients. It's a forgotten snack in Singapore, but still enjoyed among the tight-knit Tong'an community.
现在可以一起吃了。
啊，可以吃的就是就是用手拿比较好吃。
Okay. It's so fragrant, and I feel like it really tastes a lot more like a meal than a snack.
It's filling, easy to eat, and perfect for multitasking. What's not to love? Among the Chinese immigrants who arrived at Telok Ayer, Hokkiens were the majority. But they were not the only ones. Who else were among these early arrivals? Can we still find traces of their food culture in Singapore today? I'm on a journey to discover food stories of Telok Ayer and its vicinity.
Do you do cooking at home?
So far, I've tracked down authentic Hokkien food on the brink of extinction.
So how the taste?
泡泡茶。
I found out that thanks to Singapore's location along the maritime Silk Road, it became a trading hub with many goods passing through the port. And spices were hot property.
Smells good. Many of these spices feature heavily in our local dishes. Star anise, cinnamon and clove in bak kut teh, and cardamom and saffron in biryani. Smells so good. But who brought all these flavors to our island?
One of the earliest spice merchants was Muhammad Saleh Yusuf Angulya, or MSE for short. I'm meeting MSE's descendants to find out more about his spice legacy.
So that's our grandmother, if you understand the photograph. Yeah.
I see the
And this house actually, where actually MSE's son actually is standing on, is the Orchard Road house. He even has a company, you see, MSE Angulya and Company. And he stood at Collier Quay, which is actually the Ocean Financial Center currently. And this is the picture where his company actually resides in those times. So the Angulya family actually hails from a town called Randir in the province of Surat in the northern India. In the 1850s, the Angulya family set sails for Singapore and the Far East. You know, they're looking for better lives and so on. On that ship was actually Muhammad Saleh Yusuf Angulya, you know, and he actually makes Singapore his destination.
MSE predicted that Indian settlers like himself would need spices for their cooking. So he shipped in spices and set up shops along Chulia Street, Malacca Street, and Telok Ayer Street. His shrewd business acumen paid off.
Actually, at the peak, he even owned 4 ships to be plying the routes or the trading routes, you know, Singapore, Iraq, India, and so on in the region.
MSE's wealth and achievements propelled him into a prominent figure in the local Indian Muslim community. In 1898, he set up the MSE Angulya Trust Fund, which till this day remains the largest Muslim trust fund in Singapore. While the Angulyas eventually moved on from the spice trade to other businesses like real estate and hospitality, it was what kick-started the family's success.
I'm so amazed by how he started out as a small spice business and grew it into a perpetual trust fund that helps society until today.
The trust that he set up and this mosque, which is very prominent, gave all the family member, the Angulya family member, a sense of identity.
As a descendant, I think he should be proud of his achievements. He left something that is very selfless and very charitable.
The arrival of spices at Telok Ayer Bay, the spice shops along Telok Ayer Street, a food trail is forming up nicely in the Telok Ayer area. And just a stone's throw away on Market Street, another group of immigrants known as the Chettiars are also spice-loving folks. Back in the 19th century, Market Street was like the Wall Street of New York. It was where the Chettiars set up their money-lending operations. If you were a businessman back in those days, the Chettiars were your go-to for startup capital. Alagapan was 15 when he started living and working as a moneylender in a kitangi along Market Street.
When I came in 1959, I was intent to study. Then you see, during the leisure hours, I want to help my father in his business. But later, you see, since my father was very old, you see, there is no other way to look after his business. And then I have to follow his footsteps. We are helping especially the small-time business people, hawker centers. So you see, we lend it to them. Then you collect it in 10 months' time like that.
And then there's interest.
Yeah, with the interest. That's right, of course.
The kitangi was where Alagapan spent years honing his accounting, mental calculation, and people-reading skills. More than just being Alagapan's workspace, the kitangi was also his home. Work from home? The Chettiars were probably the pioneers of the trend.
In every kitangi, they have tailoring shops on the top floor. Then the barber also comes there every day in the morning. Say until 9 o'clock, he'll be there. And Dobby comes 3 times a month. So you'll come and collect all the cloths. 3rd floor, there is a temple also. every tangi they will be having a cook, nearly about 4 to 5 persons are around there. So they will be having a different variety of food also.
So how is Chettinad food unique?
The kind of spices we use, the ingredient we use, it makes it extraordinary. And usually these are passed on within the family, you know, from a grandmother to a mother to a wife. Therefore, that we maintain this kind of tradition throughout, you know, your generations.
So there's a special masala unique to your family alone.
Yes.
That is handed down through
Yes.
generations.
Like for example, right, my mom always make this masala in particular way. Then after that, my wife is following this from her. So as a kid, for me, the taste bud always remains the same. You know, it doesn't change just because of different spices or masalas used.
Yeah. Could you tell me the secret recipe to your masala spice mix?
Yeah. Sure, it's $1 million recipe.
After hearing all about this secret recipe, I can't wait to try it. But before that, Nara is letting me in on another family tradition: the sequencing of food served in a Cheria household.
Usually for those breakfast or dinner, sweet is always served first.
We put sweet first because we say we really welcome, that's why.
I think the sweetness in our tradition is always gives you the feeling that you are happiness and joyfulness. That's why that say any celebrations or any functions, definitely there will be sweet, and this is the first one to be given out. Then they put all the paniyarams, the main dish, which are usually rice-based. Then comes all the condiments and chutneys and sambar for this. You start with the sweet one first.
Okay. I'll use my hands as well.
Yeah. Okay.
This is amazing. Well, I definitely feel lucky to be able to share this meal with you. It's really a privilege.
It's our pleasure, yeah.
The Cheria's money-lending enterprise thrived in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Beyond Market Street, they also set up shop along nearby Chulia Street. This was an area populated by the Tamil Muslims, a community known for their food. I know the perfect person to fill me in on the background of Tamil Muslim food. As a chef and food historian, Vasoon is on a mission to carve out an identity for Indian food in Singapore. And Tamil Muslim food, or Chulia food, is a huge area of interest.
So this is an older picture of how it used to be arranged. And you can clearly see here it's actually Tamil Muslim because of the attire. So a lot of the food that we know as, say, Indian food is actually Tamil Muslim food, and it's because it's widely available in Singapore as street food. And this street food actually has connections in Penang, and the food in Penang actually directly connects to the food that can be found in southern parts of the coastal town where Tamil Muslims live.
Rojak, mee goreng, mee rebus. These are classic Tamil Muslim dishes that many of us are familiar with, but yet often think of them as either Indian or Malay food.
It's very comfort food for people working.
Vasoon wants to change that.
So what made you get interested in Tamil Muslim food?
So Tamil Muslim food really fascinates me because food gets very generalized.
Right.
So the different subgroups get sort of subsumed under this large umbrella of, say, Indian food. But then what exactly is Indian food? What is Singapore Indian food? And when you question that, then you'll see that Tamil Muslim food is a big part of what makes Singapore Indian food, actually. But they don't get acknowledged as Tamil Muslim food. Okay, and then you shape it.
Vasoon wants to use her private dining platform to educate Singaporeans on how nuanced and varied Indian cuisine is. For her upcoming menu, Tamil Muslim food is taking center stage.
Now you can give it a go and try it. Not that difficult, right?
Attempt.
Today, Vasoon is doing a test cook of the menu's appetizer, soup tulang.
My first soup tulang.
In the deep south, also with other communities, they make soup with like a tonic soup with the bones of the goat. So I'm making a version that's inspired by it. So what I've done here actually is the goat, the ribs as well as the shank. I've boiled it with some spices and masala that I make at home.
My time with Vasoon has been eye-opening. She's inspired me to appreciate the origins and complexities of hawker fare.
And then you get a bit of the sizzle.
Taking time to understand my food has made the experience so much more satisfactory.
This is the broth together with some spices and all that I cooked for 3-4 hours. So you can...
It's incredible. I feel like it's completely different from the soup tulang that I've tried because this is so light and so fresh, and I feel like I can eat so much of it. Whereas the other one makes you feel like you're gonna sleep for 5 days.
Because I use goat meat and the ribs, which don't have that much fat. And the broth, because it's brewed for so long, there's a lot of flavor from the bone, so you don't need that kind of a hit of the heavy, oily flavors. And it's a soup, so I've reimagined it to be a bit lighter because it's a very first course.
I'll be completing an artwork at the end of this journey, reflecting all the flavors and stories I've experienced. And for Vasoon's version of soup tulang, it's this lightness of the dish that I hope to represent using a unique shape and color. After Vasoon's introduction to Tamil Muslim food, I'm eager to taste some home-cooked recipes that speak of a family's love for their heritage.
I put for you brinjal, and I put for you carrot, and I put for you mango.
Oh, wow.
And I'm about to uncover an unexpected fishy story.
He identified about 75 species on that expedition.
I'm on a quest to uncover food stories in the Telok Ayer neighborhood, the historical enclave that's rich with influences from the early immigrants. Some of them, like the Chulias, brought their unique Tamil Muslim food culture to our shores. To get a deeper appreciation, Chef Vasoon insisted that I need to experience Spice Z Kitchen.
So I went to the toilet and I saw the banana leaves.
Oh, yeah. My helper put it in the pail of water, particularly just to soften them.
In this kitchen, Mama Z is the head chef. Her daughter Tahira is the brains behind this venture. Through cooking classes held in their home, they share heirloom recipes that are common in their culture but not easily found in hawker centers or restaurants. Tahira's out of town, so I'm taking over as Mama Z's sous chef today.
Because the thing is, it has to be like 3/4 cooked.
Right, okay. It's
so
almost
it just has
there.
to be there, just a little bit more.
I see it.
We are cooking biryani. Not the classic one, but siam biryani, vermicelli noodles cooked with mutton and biryani masala.
Yeah, okay, good. So now we're going to pour the curry. I think it's a dish when you cook, it comes up in abundance.
Yeah, right.
And it feeds a lot of people. That's why it's cooked at home on occasions or when there's big gatherings.
Yeah, so it's a hearty thing where people bond over the food.
And a lot of sharing. Normally we give to the neighbors. And that's how it became like very personal to this group of Indian Muslims who came from the South India, from the Tirunelveli or the Kadinallur village to Singapore, made it popular among the families.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
Try the meat, It's soft.
The meat is crazy.
So you eat it this. So this is fruit.
My experience with Mama Z is truly special. I came here in search of home-cooked Tamil Muslim food, and I'm leaving with so much more.
What goes into your stomach is coming from my heart.
Yes, exactly.
I think in the past, people cook so much of love. You know, like, and then when we pass it to you, the love actually translates to you.
So good. It's really good.
You have to try it.
You please try it.
Yeah, can you try it also? We want to barbecue first, okay?
Since art and design can tell us a lot about a particular society and generation, I'm wondering if these print advertisements from 20th century Singapore can give us clues to Telok Ayer's past.
I'm at the National Library to scour through the archives. The earliest advertisements in Singapore date back to the 1920s. These were mainly shipping and commercial notices targeted at the business community. After the war, as imports and local businesses grew in places like Telok Ayer, print advertisements started to promote goods and services to the general public.
This is an ad for Lim Kim Thai's tea, and according to this write-up, they were a well-known Chinese tea shop from Siam run by a family. They migrated to Singapore where they ran their business out of Telok Ayer. This ad is for an orange smash drink. It's really beautiful. I really love how intricate the illustrations are. It's just a big reflection of what the art was like at the time and the technology that was available to them. Look at this. It's 1963 Her World. I wasn't even born yet.
This collection of rare publications and magazines feature advertising materials from the 1830s to 1960s. Beyond nostalgia, how food was marketed also reflected demographic trends.
This brand called Red Lion has a little bracket in the corner saying Ang Sai. And it says here that the name Ang Sai is Hokkien dialect for Red Lion in reference to the local colloquial way of referring to the drink.
How do you market a product? First, you gotta name it well. Back in the 1930s, one man understood this concept well. Ishak Ahmad was a senior officer at the Fisheries Department. But perhaps he's better known as the father of Yusof Ishak, Singapore's first president. Anthony Badrano is a historian. He spent years of his academic life exploring the history of Singapore through the most important protein on this island, fish.
Because that's what most people could afford to eat. Singapore is surrounded by water, and there's a really rich biodiversity of marine life around Singapore's waters. The ocean, via things like fish or shrimp or crustaceans or mollusks, they pretty much figure in all dishes, I think, in one small way or a big way in Singapore's kind of foodscape. A lot of people ate it. A lot of people sold it. So fish was really significant in that it was abundant, it was accessible, it would be available all year round, so it was kind of trans-seasonal, and it really fit nicely into people's kind of foodways and eating habits, and it was affordable.
The potential of the fish industry attracted fishermen from Okinawa. Their fishing techniques, usage of motorboats, and ability to keep their catch fresh with cold storage gave them an edge over the local fishermen. By the 1930s, Japanese fishermen were controlling more than 50% of Singapore's fish supply. That's where Ishak Ahmad comes in.
This is a really fun picture which I got from the National Archives of Malaysia. This was a scientific expedition, a biological survey of Malayan waters, which Ishak bin Ahmad was the only Malay on the expedition. Ishak's role was to identify the fish that they caught, which is what he did. He identified about 75 species on that expedition, His ability to identify them in terms of their Malay names, the vernacular names, meant that this expedition could sell these fish, and these fish then would figure into the market at Clyde Terrace. It wasn't that he invented or coined these names for these fish, like galam tikus or galam panjang, but his work meant that these names mattered and that they were significant and they had some economic importance. And sort of without Ishak, these fish would have probably not found their pathway in the market, their niche in the market, and they might have been rejected. So yeah, I think it was pretty significant in that sense.
Telok Ayer was where Malay fishermen sold their catch. At the Telok Ayer market, located right on the waterfront. This was where people go to for the freshest catch, including a group of immigrants not used to having fish as part of their diet.
The early immigrants came to Singapore in search of a better life. Like a game of chess, every move, every decision matters. For some, it might even mean dabbling in fishy business.
For one particular group of immigrants, fish was a rare commodity back in their hometown.
So Don, I'm going to give you a test. Do you know where's this?
China.
Correct, bingo.
Chomping is Hakka, a minority dialect group who also arrived in Singapore at Telok Ayer. And Chayong was where his ancestors came from.
So this is actually the map of Tapu County, where my ancestors come from.
Right.
So this county is about 3 times the size of Singapore.
Right.
And you can see it's 90% mountains. This is where all the Hakka people live, and that's why we're famous for singing the mountain song, Sang Ke.
I know this is completely unrelated, but what are these 2 sculptures that are sitting here?
This is pure evidence that the Hakka people are coming from the northern China. Nowadays, the Cantonese lions, those are the Wang Fei Hong
Yes.
kind, those you put it over your head. So this is a typical Hakka one, and you have the red cloth behind. You want to try?
Sure. Is there music? Music. You gotta like...
The Hakka people are perhaps better known for a signature dish that has become one of Singapore's famous hawker fare.
The most famous one is, of course, Yong Tau Fu, right? Or Chinese, we call it Niang Tofu. Because we missed the jiaozi, the dumpling. But we couldn't find the skin to make the dumpling,
like the
so we developed tofu. We dig a hole and put pork inside to...
Genius.
Yes.
After moving from a landlocked hill country to Singapore, an island surrounded by waters, the Hakka people had to improvise once again. This time, swapping out pork stuffing with fish instead.
Because it's in abundance.
It's a fishing village.
Yes, it was the sea harbor and a fishing port. So we actually mixed the pork and the fish and into what you have today, the Niang Tofu, which is about...
Delicious.
I've been exploring what early settlers in Singapore ate. But what about modern-day immigrants? How have they contributed to our food culture?
It's called the karajé and vatapa.
Karajé and vatapa.
That was the natural one. Yeah.
Today we're at Telok Ayer and we're filming for the first time. And I've never done this before. Yeah.
My day job sees me creating things. Just like how my artwork is inspired by my experiences, food is also the product of various cultures.
Kaya toast is said to be a product of Hainanese and British influences. Epok-epok, sometimes known as the Malay curry puff, is rumored to have been inspired by the Portuguese empanada and Indian samosa. And laksa possibly came about due to the intermarriages of Malay women and Chinese traders who made a stop in Singapore.
If the early immigrants gave us kaya toast and laksa, what new flavors did modern-day immigrants bring to our shores? Years ago, Telok Ayer was the landing point for immigrants. Today, the area may look vastly different, but it's still a melting pot of cultures, with restaurants serving up a wide variety of cuisines from all over the world. Among them is Nuri, a one-Michelin-starred restaurant on Amoy Street. Helmed by chef Ivan Brem, he cooks with a philosophy of food as the product of intersecting cultures and ultimately, stories of migration. He calls this Crossroads cooking, and he's prepared a dish that demonstrates this concept.
And there you go.
Beautiful.
It is
Thank
quite
you
nice,
so
isn't
much.
it? It's called the
Yes.
acarajé and vatapa.
I can't pronounce that.
It's called the acarajé and vatapa.
Karajé and vatapa.
That was a natural one. Yeah. It's a cross between native Brazilian, African, Portuguese traditions.
Can you tell me more about this dish and why it means so much to you?
I'm from Brazil, right? So I took a dish from Brazil and looked at the information that I could find about this dish, only to discover that it has lots of links with dishes from Africa, but also dishes in Southeast Asia. In the curry itself and in the fritter itself, the curry that you see in the middle is a vatapa. And when you read the list of ingredients that go inside a vatapa and you read the list of ingredients that go inside a laksa or inside a Thai yellow curry, for example, they're literally the same. We're talking about the same ingredients with the exception of fish sauce and lime. Actually, a Thai curry and a Brazilian vatapa were born maybe 20, 30 years apart from each other. Those were the first written records. And so we're making a dish that is very much the expression of that link, right? And our food histories, and you can see this on the streets, right? Our histories are woven and we're consistently impacting each other. And it's a beautiful way to look at the world. You know? Differences start to kind of melt a little bit.
Can't wait to dig in.
You should dig in,
Thank you so
man.
much.
Just let's go for it, sis.
Thank you.
Suspense.
It's fitting that Nuri is in the Telok Ayer district, a modern restaurant celebrating the connection of cultures through food, at the very spot where immigrants landed and kickstarted the birth of a Singaporean food culture. One thing I've noticed throughout my journey is that food evolves. Immigrant food gradually takes on the palates and preferences of their adopted home. There's one group of immigrants that has piqued my interest. In the last 2 decades or so, there seemed to be an increase in the number of Korean restaurants in Singapore. And especially so here in Telok Ayer and nearby Tanjung Pagar. Mr. Zhang and Hong Q have been in Singapore for close to 2 decades. And they think Telok Ayer is a hotspot for Korean restaurants due to the growing number of Korean expats working in the area. Whatever the reason, these restaurants are now a mainstay not just for Koreans, but also Singaporeans looking for a taste of their favorite K-pop idols' diet. But Mr. Zhang and Hong Q have observed some differences between Korean food here and back home. Today, they are putting me to the test with a quintessential Korean dish, kimchi stew.
Thank you.
There's a catch. They may look the same, but they're not. Version 1 is closer to the taste of kimchi stew back in Korea, whereas version 2 is adapted to suit local taste buds.
I feel like this one has a lot more like depth of flavor. Let me try again. this one feels like it has more ingredients.
Okay. And do you want to guess like which one we usually have it back at home?
I'm guessing this one. No?
Oh, actually no. It's
this one?
Yeah, it's this.
Right.
Yeah, this one. In Korea, usually when we eat kimchi stew, it's really like a stew.
Yeah.
So about 70% will be like ingredients and 30% soup. But locals, I think they prefer more soupy base.
Yeah.
So in Singapore, when he cooks, he will like add more like water in a sense. So it'll be 30% ingredients, 70% soup.
Just like how Hakka immigrants swapped out pork for fish in their dishes, today's Korean immigrants must also adapt to the Singaporean taste buds.
I really like this one.
Thank you.
I've been on a journey to learn about the history of Telok Ayer through food. Now, I want to translate these experiences into art. As a homage to the streets where these food stories were born out of, I'm using a skateboard deck as my canvas.
And it's done! A painting inspired by the food stories of my journey through Telok Ayer's past.
The dishes I've tried and the stories I've heard inspired the unique colors on the deck. Purple for the glutinous rice in the Tong An Popiah. Pink to represent the spice of siam biryani and the warmth of Mama Z. And turquoise for the waters that brought the early immigrants to the shores of Telok Ayer Bay.
And my favorite of all is the sweet potato rice cake. Well, I actually chose this particular gray-brown mauve color because it reminded me of what the sweet potato rice cake color looked like before it was cooked. And this shape and color kind of reminds me of the banana leaf that we ate the food on, the cheddar food.
This painting is my ode to the food stories that stemmed from the streets of Telok Ayer. These colors represent the vibrance of Telok Ayer's food history and the passion of people past and present who want to preserve their stories of toil, tenacity, and triumphs through food.
No drums!